Everybody longs to live in a place where one feels at home, where people get along with each other well, where young people feel there is room to express themselves, work with their talent and have the opportunity to develop their identity, where they feel seen and heard, where they have good future perspective and experience well-being. Then we can speak of sustainable community. A neighborhood that can withstand a lot and gives you plenty of opportunities. In 2019, the municipality of Tilburg in the Netherlands, together with local artists and social service partners, initiated a large-scale social transformation process called Forward with the neighborhood of Tilburg North. Tilburg North is one of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in Tilburg, with about 24,000 inhabitants and of which 7,000 aged between 0 and 25. It is known for its high cultural and ethnic diversity and having wrong lists such as relatively high amount of poverty households, as well as the number of single-parent households. Also known for problems with undermining. But when you ask youngsters, they often are proud of Tilburg North and feel at home there. Forward aims to create a rich cultural ecosystem to help youth express their identity, to discover, develop, support and exhibit talent, and to promote young people's well-being and future prospects.
Ik ben zeker trots om in Noord te wonen, want ja, heel de buurt is gewoon samen, is een en al liefde. Ja, natuurlijk zijn er mensen die wat vinden van Noord, maar het is niet alsof elke buurt ideaal is of zo, of dat er niks speelt. Ze weten alleen dingen van buitenaf, maar zelf van binnen, als je daar woont, weet je niks. Want ze weten ook niet dat Noord gewoon een en al liefde is. Als iemand wat bereikt, is heel de buurt trots, niet alleen die persoon. Want dat weten ze niet.
Tilburg is experiencing what it takes to create such a cultural ecosystem and how it can contribute to establish and enhance sustainable neighborhood. The focus is on unlocking the unseen, strengthen and make more visible existing potential of youth and set the system in motion. How they work together with each other and with the young inhabitants of Tilburg North. In this video, we will explain what we've learned from this process till now. My name is Huijgen, engaged researcher at Tilburg University, and I'm involved in the Forward research program.
My name is Kravalik, a professional working on social urban innovation across Europe and a program expert for the project Forward, accompanying the project partners on their exciting journey. To take you along this journey, we created a picture. This picture is based on the participatory research which was accomplished in the past 2 years within Forward project. This picture makes visible our findings on how the process of working towards more sustainable neighborhoods looks like. We will clarify the notion of culture and art, the field of action for Forward. The two main pillars, the two most important pillars, are sustainable communities and local ownership of use. To strengthen sustainable communities, we need to support the local ownership of use. They are interrelated in a so-called cycle of interdependence. You can't create sustainable communities without supporting the local ownership. And then the other way around, you need to support local ownership to create the sustainable communities. You have to create this virtuous cycle to enhance local ownership of use. Also, we distinguished two crucial conditions: the cultural ecosystem and the citizen space. To turning them to the right position can encourage the sustainable communities and ensure local ownership of use. They are like the cogwheels. If we are turning them to the right position, we will make this virtuous circle work. In our understanding, this is the process how cultural heritage can be built up, created and maintained. This is heritage, this is lived heritage. Now let's focus on the different elements of this picture now.
A main understanding of the concepts of culture and art is that they should be lumped together. These are different concepts, and that is also reflected in the way youngsters feel about art and culture. For youngsters, art is less approachable. It's institutionalized. Culture, on the other hand, rings a bell for them. Youth can relate to culture. For them, it has to do, for example, with the way they dress, with food, with their diverse cultural background. Because culture is all around us, it's accessible and approachable. Art for them has to do with visual or fine art. Maybe it's a result of the way we talk about art most of the time. It's often like the icing on the cake as something extra. At the beginning of this project, one of the young people we talked to told us this about art and culture.
The Forward project has a lot of potential, but I do think a lot went wrong in communicating about it with young people. Forward was introduced as an art and culture project, but for young people that's something they would rather run away from. They don't know things like photography or fashion are a part of art and culture. That's such a shame, because the project has a lot of potential. Through fashion you can tell your personal story, or you learn how to use a sewing machine. There are so many possibilities, so it's really a pity the communication wasn't right from the get-go.
But when you consider art as the practice through which we express our creativity, or even question our culture, it makes much more sense. Then it's about music, taking pictures, the way we dress, what we eat, organizing events or visiting them. And in that sense, youngsters are much more involved in art than they think they are. Culture is about meaning and says something about what we value in life and how we view the world. It presupposes practice, and that practice, in fact, is to be considered as art. And art pops up everywhere. Culture is not a collection of objects, but takes shape in people's interactions. Culture, through practices of art, is therefore constantly evolving. 3 roles of culture are distinguished by Professor of Sociology of Culture Pascal Gille. The first one is socializing. Culture presupposes an interaction of people among themselves, but also between people and objects, buildings, etc. Culture touches on what people have in common or not, and thus on community. The second role of culture is qualifying. It's about learning, skills, knowledge and competences that are required to be able to function and express yourself reasonably well. The third role of culture is subjectivizing. It gives you understanding of your place in society. Culture, by the practice of art, enables learning to occupy an independent, autonomous position in an existing cultural order. You can experiment, raise or demonstrate something that touches you, or what you want to be seen or heard. From our report on the potential of art and culture for youngsters in Tilburg North, we conclude 6 opportunities that arise for youngsters by being involved in Forward initiatives. In these opportunities we can recognize these 3 functions of culture. The first one is experiencing culture, watching performances, going to a festival, watching murals and exhibitions. The second is creating culture, make performances and creating in workshops. The third one is about taking up space, putting places into use that are getting a new destination. The fourth one is what we've called voice. Youngsters are able to speak out about topics they are concerned about. The fifth opportunity which arises is experience and entrepreneurship. The last one is enabling youth to expand their network. To illustrate the role of subjectivizing, you can also say culture has the ability to show that everything that is also could be different. The aforementioned Professor Gille calls this dismeasure. We see this happen in Tilburg North if we listen to this quote of a young woman.
During the holidays, a small group of us went to Amsterdam to visit an exhibition of a Moroccan photographer who combines modern life with the Islam. There were some photos of which I thought, I wouldn't necessarily think like that because I'm very open-minded, but I did notice some of the other girls found it a bit more difficult to see their faith combined with something else. I thought it was really nice that we were able to talk about it. For example, there was this picture that combined Islam with Judaism and Christianity. I noticed their reaction was kind of like, why would you do that? While I found it nice, they combined all those faiths, right? From there, our conversation just ran, talking about how can you view things differently and show each other those views. I really like that sort of thing. I mean, I always like it a lot more when someone else thinks differently, because that's how you can learn from each other. I know I am open-minded, but it did make me realize there's different ways to look at it, and I could understand where they were coming from.
Ownership is a prerequisite for sustainable societies. You have to encourage, enable, and accept the local ownership of use, since sustainability of neighborhoods must come from within. A good field of action to encourage ownership is through the practices of culture, which is art. The practices of North Tilburg, the experiences of North Tilburg, creating videos, magazines, exhibitions, art fairs and murals can lead to the openness in which cultural identities can be expressed. But how can ownership be encouraged? We have to arrive with an open mind. We have to be genuinely interested what's already there, what they have, their fears, their dreams, instead of thinking about what's missing there and what's there but it's not visible, and it's really challenging. As an organization, you don't have to bring into the neighborhood, bring into this little microcosmos anything, but you have to look what's already there. Talents, the interests, what comes from within. You have to support this exploration of the meaningful for the youth.
Ja, we hebben heel veel verschillende activiteiten gedaan. Dus, één daarvan is een groot, om dingen bij elkaar te brengen, is het IP-fest natuurlijk. En daarin hebben we eigenlijk jongeren gevraagd hoe zo'n festival ingevuld moet worden. Fashion Clash heeft heel veel festivalervaring met ons eigen festival. Maar dit is een heel ander verhaal met andere mensen die op een heel andere manier ingevuld zou moeten worden. Wij hebben dat dus gevraagd en neergelegd bij jongeren in de buurt. En met name Ashraf is daarvan de kartrekker geweest. En die heeft dat samen met ons opgepakt. We hebben gefaciliteerd. Waardoor er een festival ontwikkeld is dat echt vanuit de buurt heeft kunnen ontstaan.
En hopelijk is dat ook wat de buurt wil voordragen. Want wij hebben natuurlijk dit gedaan zodat de buurt het zelf gaat oppakken. Wij wilden gewoon daar een aanjager in zijn en ondersteunen. En ja, we hopen dat het inspireert dat jongeren en buurtbewoners hun wijk zullen blijven vieren en daar mooie dingen van organiseren.
Ja, dus hopelijk is dit een eerste editie van vele te komen.
The first results on research on the meaning of forward for youngsters in Tilburg North endorse the assumption of the importance of local ownership. When youth is experiencing autonomy or ownership in participating in the cultural activities of Forward, they experience benefits like more well-being. Two main conditions for a sustainable neighborhood and the ownership of local youth are related to the citizen space and the cultural ecosystem. When you put them in the heart of your work, these become main conditions of change. In the field of culture, citizen space occupies an important place. It's worthwhile and necessary to acknowledge it, because working on transition can occur in different ways. This can be illustrated by the four modes of relationships between institutions or system and the inhabitants and youngsters. This model is developed by an international expert on community development, Cormac Russell. To refers to when change is done to us and without us. This is a controlling form of top-down change, where change is imposed by a leader who himself sees a need. 4 refers to when change is done for us but without us. This is a well-intentioned form of top-down change, where change is imposed by organizations to serve a genuine need. With refers to when change is done for us and with us. This is a participative form of change, where change is done by working together and is generally recognized as serving a commonly felt need. By refers to when change is done for us and by us. This is a power-building form of change, where change is done by people themselves, where they can request for support and serve a commonly felt need. The by space is in fact the citizen space. It does justice to the position of the youth. The youngsters are in charge here. The space, the neighborhood, the living environment belongs to the people and the youngsters who live there, not to the institutions and organizations. In the citizen space, local ownership of youth is key, and it is the basis of acting from the organizations. It gives opportunity and enables emancipation. If one is working in the by space or citizen space, the main question is, do citizens participate in your project, or are you participating in the world of citizens? Because everything that happens takes place in the citizen space, in the field of culture in its broadest way. To illustrate how Forward works in citizen space, we can show 3 cases.
Het was echt een verrassing voor ons, want we komen hier in de zomer repeteren. Ik was hier met 8 actrices en 4 straatvoetballers. En we gingen een stuk maken. Binnen een uur, de kinderen begonnen naar binnen te rennen. Dus ik zeg, oké, nou kom binnen. En nou, ik heb hun gevraagd, wil je even meedoen? Ja, vonden ze leuk. Nou ja, dan, it went from there. Ja, en binnen 3 uur, ze waren 30.
The main characteristics of an ecosystem are its diversity, the continuous exchange of energy, and its narrative and historical character. Within Forward, 3 characteristics of cultural ecosystem can be distinguished. The different domains, such as music, dance, theater, food, or telling stories. Second is the different actors, such as venues, centers, associations, organizations, the people who do that. The third one is the different logics, the way of acting, thinking, and organizing. The cultural ecosystem is the totality of expressions, the stories, infrastructure, people, initiatives, networks, organizations, spots, and locations. A healthy cultural ecosystem offers youngsters room for self-development and identity formation, and reminds them that they are free to express themselves. Young people can discover and explore what their capabilities are. It offers them the opportunity to be creative and express their feelings on whatever concerns them. The Forward project aimed to work as a catalyst for transition in art and culture, which created a remix in the cultural ecosystem as well. We can list 5 elements here, from culture as a means of consumption to a culture which is about fulfillment, from a bureaucratic cultural sector to an open and reciprocal cultural sector, from passive learning to active learning, from a limited space, somewhere far away, to accessible and low threshold places, from insufficient connection to young people to art and culture created by young people for young people. When the second features occur, the wheel of transformation starts turning and starts to make the sustainable community and the ownership of youth work in this virtuous circle. So at the end, we arrived to the heritage. Heritage can be maintained, and this process for the heritage is through these two pillars, the sustainable communities and the ownership of youth. Only if these two elements are working together and for each other, heritage can be built up. Cultural heritage is built up every day, where young people can express their identity and they live their full potential. And that's why ownership of the local youth is a prerequisite for heritage. And this, the lived heritage can help and support the sustainable communities within this circle and interrelates with culture all the time.
Forward learns that this is a wicked process. It also shows us beginning there where the energy is, with a lot of attention to the autonomy of youngsters, leads to practices of art which successfully contribute to youngsters' well-being and their ability to express their identity, and hopefully to gain appropriate future prospects.
Thank you for your attention.
We love to hear your reaction.